Welcome to Business Prowess with Rafael and Dr. Andrea. Our show will bring you the best insights, ideas, and inspiration from successful entrepreneurs and CEOs in the business world. Don't miss out on the opportunity to learn from the best and stay ahead of the game. Sifu Rafael is the founder of 5 unique shows. He's a fitness professional, solutions expert, executive coach, and head instructor at Max Martial Arts and Fitness in New York. Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller is an award-winning international keynote speaker, best-selling author, and CEO of the Red Carpet Connection Publicity, Publishing, and Talent Agency, and CEO of IgniteYourRelationship.com. Known as the Dream Maker, she makes visionaries' dreams come true, bigger than they ever dare to desire.
Happy Friday, Dr. Andrea. How are you doing today? You look beautiful, by the way.
Well, thank you very much for that
compliment. Always do. You always do.
So I'm talking to you guys today from Vegas. I'm on my way to LA to speak at an event called the International Board for Certified Professionals, so IBCP online. So super excited about that.
Exciting. What can I say? You bring so much value to every conversation that you and I have ever had, but you also you're bringing even more to the conference that you're going to. And you told me you didn't want to pass it up because you've worked hard for it, and everything that we do in life, and you know it doesn't always come easy, but something worthwhile is worth fighting for, right?
Absolutely. As a neuroscientist now and master hypnotist and master NLP practitioner from 3 different schools, by the way. So I've attended multiple schools to get all this training and duplicating my work so I could do really well. And so to be asked to speak at this event was to be selected. I did submit a year ago to speak at it, and to be selected was a big deal. So despite the past surgeries here, for those of you who know me, that I had a colorectal cancer diagnosis, and 2 weeks ago, Friday, I had my descending colon and my total hysterectomy. But I am now doing well, and looks like everything is in remission, so cancer-free. So I can stop focusing on just being alive, and now I can focus on living again.
Well, it's and the way you are alive, you help so many people. And I got to tell you, I'm excited for today's show. We have 2 incredible human beings. Let's go ahead and bring them on. We have Carly and Martin. How are you both doing today?
Great to see you guys.
So I'm doing well. Thank you so much. It's great to see you again, Sifu.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When we consider business concepts, ideas, people, what is the thing that stands out for each one of you? You can go, and this is open conversation. You guys have questions. You want to cut me off? Go for it. But let's have some fun.
Yeah, so when I think about business concepts, I mean, there's some amazing books and amazing information out in the world. So with myself, with clients, it's just making sure that we're implementing things that strategically will assist their business, something that is actually going to help them scale, grow, increase cash flow, make sure that they're not just a profitable business, but also a very stable business. Like, that's very important. And definitely incorporating that human behavior dynamic as well, because we're all people. We all go through our internal challenges. And yeah, so it's understanding how we can overcome those emotions, those challenges, the frustrations, the stresses as they come through, so we can ensure that we're moving forward on our visions and missions.
Right. I agree with you 100%, Carly, with everything you said there, 100%. I honestly believe that so many people think when they get into business, they have to do it by themselves. And it's not that way. I say you can go alone, but you can't grow alone. You need to have a team around you. You need to understand that you have to stay in your zone of genius, what you're best at. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, whoever doesn't know who he is, go out and get that book. He says, I want to be the dumbest guy in my business. That means he wants to surround himself with people that are smarter than him in the different areas that they are an expert. So I take it to the next level. I say the people that know why, the people that know how, work for the people that know why. That's not taking anything away from the house, because each one of them have their whys, but coming all together and working in a comprehensive, communicative way is the way to do it.
Interesting. Robert Kiyosaki. I sat with him a long time ago, and such a brilliant man. And he was with another billionaire at the time, which I don't want to necessarily mention. But the three of us had such an incredible conversation, and he is so just down to earth. He truly, truly is. And he tells us the most important thing about business. It's one is definitely believe in yourself and don't let anybody take anything away from you. But you got to go for it. You have to go.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, go for it.
When I met Robert Kiyosaki, we had a different conversation. Of course, this was I think a year ago, and he obviously, people love his work. His books and stuff have been brilliant. People have really, really liked them. But he could be quite opinionated. And very direct. We'll just put it that way. So I want to be very real and authentic, that people can be brilliant. And sometimes EQ can be at a different level, and part of it, it makes me wonder, because, I don't want to discredit any of the amazing work that he's done. And at the same time, I want to be honest, with people that, sometimes people aren't as approachable as you would think or seem. And I don't know if it's because of age, or it's because of, when everybody knows you, or because of ego, or whatever it could be, or maybe he had a bad day, situations like that arise. But we had talked a little bit about emotional intelligence before the show, and I thought that might be a good way to bring that up and say, what are your guys' thoughts of, when people are really doing well in the world, why they might have that situation where they just aren't going to take any BS anymore.
Yeah, so I've never met Robert, so I haven't had those experiences. But even just that dynamic of, us not kind of taking BS, us having like a different approach, some people being more approachable than others, right? And I've seen this with certain, mentors and stuff. Like I have a mentor who's highly approachable, like he actually came to my wedding virtually on the phone. He tried to actually fly in, and he couldn't make it. So he came on the phone, where there's other ones where they're just not going to talk to you at all. So it really differs and it ranges. I think part of it is also the marketing dynamic that I see, like the individual that I'm speaking of, John DeMartini. I love him. He's one of my faves. And he's a really inspiring guy. But part of what he teaches us is that the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same. And so for him, he's really embodying what he teaches, where to me and to him, like I am his equal, and he shows me that through the processes and the systems, that there's nothing missing inside me, and he treats me that way, right? So it's pretty inspiring. There's other individuals, marketing wise, they want to be known as the best, they want to be seen as the best, and you'll kind of get that dynamic where it's like, who are you? Are you important? What's up? Should I be giving you my time? And I'm like, okay, it's fair enough. Like you meet thousands and thousands of people, but at the same time, it is a different dynamic, and it is a different persona in a sense. So we kind of see, almost in a marketing sense, what is more important to individuals and what they perceive. Then I think there's also just a matter of time, it's like, if we have this many connections and this many contacts, it's like, do we actually have the time to connect with people on a regular basis? And, sometimes they're not going to remember us, even if they had an amazing impact in our lives and we had this one moment with them. They may never remember us, because we're forgetting, like, Tony Robbins is a great example, like 5,000 people in one workshop. He could have made, if I met him once and he made the biggest impact in my life, but he'll never probably remember me because of the quantity of people that he's connecting with and reaching. So I think it's also just making sure that we manage our own expectations on how we can connect with people, how people are going to connect with us. And if we provide value, then they'll spend more time with us, and obviously in John's Institute as well, I'm very engrossed in it, and I help them out a lot as well. So I get some extra perks there, a little bit of extra one-on-one time.
That's so true that there are different personalities out there, different ways. I met Robert Kiyosaki back in the 90s, just after his book came out, and I was at a convention. It was actually an Amway convention. At the time, I was in Amway, and he was talking about his book, and I went up to his table after he spoke, and he was just sitting there all by himself. So we had a conversation for a while. I bought his game, which is called Cash Flow, and he signed the board. And we had a great conversation, and I started following him. Never had other conversations with him directly. I was in groups with him where he was speaking in small groups and stuff. But no question about it, there is definitely different personalities out there. And it's an interesting thing. A few years, I was coaching somebody for about a year or two, and we finally got to meet about 2 years in. And after we met the next week, we had another call. And I was like, so how was your trip? How did you enjoy whatever we did there? It wasn't specific about seeing me. He goes, I was very nervous to meet you. I'm like, why? He goes, that thing, you're always afraid to meet your heroes.
Oh.
I said, because you don't know if they're going to be who you think, who they are, who you think they are. He said, but you went way beyond that. And I was so touched by that. And I hope that that's the way I always stay, that who I am is who I am at all times, and that I show up the same way all over the place. And, Carly, you were talking about different mentors. I have this woman that's a mentor of mine. Her name is Genevieve Davis. She's not very well known. She writes books about magic and the mindset and all that. And she says, the world is as you see it. So if you want to see the positive in the world, that's what's going to show up in your life. And if you want to see the negative, that's what's going to show up in your life. I mean, I've heard that many times before, but I had the chance to be coached by that woman, and she's fantastic, who I now call a friend. And she actually wrote the foreword in my last book.
Oh, that's lovely. I did want to give somebody else credit, because if we're talking about Robert Kiyosaki, I'm friends with Sharon Lechter, and Sharon Lechter was a major impact in helping Robert Kiyosaki with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and with the cash flow game. So I want to make sure she gets credit where credit is due. I think us women should be looking out for each other in situations where sometimes we have helped build other people's businesses and don't always get the credit that we deserve. Right. So
I loved reading Napoleon Hill's book on the devil, Outwitting the Devil, with her commentary throughout the book. She's really a force. She's a genius, and she's a force.
Lovely, lovely woman. Yeah. So thank you for letting me make a stand for that. And it's funny, Robert, I'm friends with his best friend. And, his best friend and I both talk about the brain and the mind all the time and so forth. And so it was so funny how, like, night and day, with the situation and with the friends, how I'm like, have this really great relationship with the one friend, and me and Robert just kind of clashed. But it was funny.
Martin, I love what you talked about. Someone is afraid to meet their heroes because maybe their heroes don't stand up to what they claim to be. So it's great that you are not the guy behind the curtain, and you saw all the different things, right? Wizard of Oz going here. And a lot of times people don't get to see who we really are, because we're hiding behind a facade of who we really are. And when you show up as authentic as you are, no matter where you are, then people they can settle down. They're like, oh, it's cool. You're just a person. And I've been very fortunate, like Dr. Andrea. I've met so many incredible celebrities, billionaires, and so forth. But to me, they're just another human being. They have a different job than me. That's
they
all.
Put one pants on it, one leg on at a time on their pants, right?
Or skirt, whatever it is.
Exactly.
But for me, it's exactly that.
Authenticity. So I've been doing some workshops lately, and a monthly workshop. And this last one I did, I had the best response to it. And I think it's because after doing them a few times and getting the kinks out of it, I was able to be more comfortable and allow my authenticity to come out. Mm-hmm. Whereas the first couple of times I was doing them, maybe it was nervousness, maybe it was not knowing my my stuff as well as I did know I knew it, but just not sure if I can present it. And I found it so interesting that I wrote out an email to my whole list saying, guys, get to your authentic point as quickly as possible, because that's what's going to make the difference in your sales, in your business, in your life. So yeah, 100%.
I'd love to dive in a little bit on the hero aspect as well, because when we think about like the hero dynamic, we'll look at someone as a hero when we actually are putting them on a pedestal. So there's a level of infatuation that we have with them, which means we put them above us, right? We put them above us and we're actually putting ourselves below them. The truth is like you said, like every person is just a human being, right? We're just a human being. We all get happy. We all get sad. Sometimes we have on days. Sometimes we have off days. Sometimes I'm nice. Sometimes I'm mean. I'm everything under the sun. When someone only sees that one side of me and they're only seeing the things that they admire, the positives, they're actually ignoring who I really am. They're ignoring the authenticity of who I am. And they'll put me on a pedestal thinking like I'm better. I have something they don't. But the truth is whatever they see inside me or anything inside their hero, they're going to have within themselves in their own form. I was just working with a client, and it was quite inspiring because her husband's a really well-known chiropractor, really well-known. And so she's also a chiropractor, but she had him on a pedestal in the form of how he's able to work with clients and all these different dynamics. We just sat there and we found it all in her own unique form. And when we found it, it was quite inspiring because she is just masterful at creating situations and events to like really help an individual settle into a comfortable space so that they can be comfortable getting these major adjustments, and the two of them together are actually the perfect team. One without the other, you're kind of missing these really cool dynamics, but the two together is perfect. And when she could see that, there's no longer an infatuation. She doesn't think there's anything missing. And then all of a sudden the hero just becomes your equal, right? And you can connect with them. And so it's really cool because I think it's important for everyone to remember, it's like whoever you're viewing as a hero, you spot it, you got it. You just haven't found it in you, in your life, in your own form. Anything that you admire out in the world, you have inside yourself, but it's in your own unique form. And as Martin kind of shared, like that's the authenticity, that's your unique genius. So going out and asking those questions to really find out what that is inside yourself, that's what we love to focus on. That's what inspires us the most, fuels us the most. So it's a really great reflection point.
It's interesting. I teach Chinese martial arts, and I now teach children's children. So people who were 5, 6 years old when I was teaching them, and now they're bringing their 5 or 6-year-old to me. It's incredible. But when I'm out in public and they see me not in a uniform, they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm just like you. We're the same. I had a kid who's autistic. He actually sought me at Costco, and he was beside himself. Sifu, oh my goodness. And I went over there and I gave him a hug. And this is a kid who's 24 years old, but he's autistic. So unfortunately, he's got the mind of a 6, 7-year-old. But being his hero, I said to him, I'm more excited to see you than you probably are. He's like, no way. I am so happy that we get to spend time together. So I talked to him for a little while. I even went down a couple of aisles with him. And one of the things that I always tell someone who, for some strange reason, puts me on a pedestal, I'm like, please don't do that. I said, because it's lonely. I don't want to be there. And I don't want to put you there either. So why don't we just hang out together and be equals? I said, you think I'm this incredible martial artist, master, whatever. I said, but I think you could be it too. Obviously, you have to do the work, but you have the skills. It's in you to become what I have. You can do what I do.
So beautiful. So beautiful, Sifu.
That's what we have to do.
I know you for a while. Your humility shows through all the time, as you're doing right now. It's, again, here's the authenticity. Knowing, if you know anything of Sifu, he gives of himself so much. And by seeing these people out there and letting them feel important in that moment, you're giving something that they're going to remember forever. They don't care what you do. They care what you say and how you say it. And if you say it the right way, they're going to remember it. And you do that every day. You shine like a light every single day.
Thank you. It's also how you make them feel, right? Not just what you say, but the feeling they get when they're around you, right? Safety, I think, is one of the most important things. When we when we meet an idol, when we meet a person that we idolize, right? Do they make us feel safe, or they make us feel uncomfortable or icky? Because all of a sudden they're not who we thought they were.
Right.
And that's a factor that happens with a lot of celebrities. If you look at somebody who's been typecast a certain way and you meet them in person and they're totally a different person, you get thrown off. But remember, we have to remember, they were just acting. That's not who they are.
I can speak to that. So I do a lot of theater, and what you don't know, Sifu, is I tried out for a musical this week.
Oh my
And
goodness, you're doing everything and you just got out of surgery. They
know.
said you are a superwoman.
thank you. And I ended up being cast as a curmudgeon, old, mean aunt in James and the Giant Peach. I speak a little Cockney, I do. And I'm also, I'm a little dim-witted in this show as well. But my stereotype for getting a show is I play usually a mean, nosy neighbor, or a, washed up old widow, or just some crotchety old mean person. And so it's very funny because I don't consider myself that at all. and yet I'm always typecast as that part. So it is very interesting to, at least I get to be funny in this one, and a little dim-witted. So that takes me a little different off of it, because that makes it more fun. But certainly it does that. When I've met multiple celebrities throughout the years, I think one of the reasons that they accept me as a publicist who comes up and talks to them and integrates with them well is that I treat them as normal people, and try to see them as who they are here, rather than being in an awe state where they're like, in fact, you can almost see when they love their fans, but sometimes they're just fatigued out. You could say they're like, oh, hi, they're like, oh, I just want to be normal, not be idolized. And it's interesting to see the difference on how that they can show up and be. So I love that you mentioned that, because sometimes, and then you had mentioned earlier, like Carly, like with Tony Robbins and stuff like that, with the speakers and the some of the clients that I've worked with, I have a lot of do not disclose, and they've worked with a lot of people like that, and they wish they could remember more people, but you're right, they just don't have the bandwidth. They get to a certain point and then you don't remember anymore, and it's and it's a challenge for them because they want to remember. Yeah.
They totally do. It's inspiring because they're like, oh, I can't remember your name. I can't remember your face. And it happens to me sometimes too. And I'll say, I'm so sorry. I'm talking to so many people all the time. Just give me a couple hints. Where did we meet? What was the contents? And I'll usually remember. But in saying this as well, it's kind of cool because it's like smashing our unrealistic expectations on what people are meant to look like, or on what they're supposed to look like, right? Because we will paint a certain picture based on someone's background and what we think that should look like. I had this before I was married. I had this so many times with the individuals that I dated, right? Where I'd start dating someone and all of a sudden we'd get to, our first kerfuffle, right? Like the first challenge that you have in a relationship. And the common feedback that I would get would be like, why are you emotional? Why don't you have it together? Like, why are we fighting right now? I thought because of who you were, this would never happen. And I just look at him and I'm like, do you understand what personal development is? Do you understand what human behavior is and how humans are? So there was a massive unrealistic expectation for me to be one-sided, for me to be all positive all the time, when I am a human, I have a purpose. And when you're challenging that, I am going to challenge you back. That's part of the nature of who I am. And now I have a husband because guess what? He's the guy who really has given me permission to be both sides, where and I say it all the time, I love him so much. He's my best friend, but he's also my favorite person to fight with. If I'm going to fight with anyone for the rest of my life, it's definitely going to be my husband. And he's also my best friend. And so it's me being able to be the fullness of a human being with an individual. And he's allowed that opposite as well, where we can have ups, we can have downs, highs and lows. We can be in a good mood, we can be in a bad mood, and we ebb and flow with each other. So I think that's, yeah, it's like smashing this unrealistic expectation of this is what I thought the person is meant to look like or supposed to look like, as opposed to asking the questions. Like, we've never met some of these people before. It's like, ask them some questions, find out who they really are, because people really appreciate that when you connect with them at that human level and you don't expect them to be this one-sided person all the time, because none of us can obtain that. It's just not possible. Life is life. Yeah.
It's so interesting that you talk about your relationship with your husband and the ones before that. So I was married for officially I was married for 25 years before I got divorced. And and it happened at the same time that I decided to become a life coach. And it really was a low point in my life. Also, it was just after 2008 when I'd lost everything and I was, building myself back up again. And going through the coaching at the same time as my divorce got me to understand where I was coming up short in a relationship. It wasn't for me to save my relationship with her, because the other thing I found is I started to understand what my values were. And as a result, I started to understand what her values were. And if I understood this when I was in my 20s, we may never have gotten married in the first place, because our values were never alike and we were in a codependent relationship. Not that I regret being married to her, because she gave me 4 wonderful children and we have 8 beautiful grandchildren now. But just the idea of that. So when I went back out into the dating world, when I would date, I would basically be interviewing these women as to what were their values before I moved any further with anything else, because if our values were not even closely aligned, then I knew that this was going to be an issue moving forward, because I learned in the first marriage, I can't change who she is, even though I thought that's what I was going to do. I have to say keep who I am, and she's just keep who she is. And it's the same thing. So as I found a woman, started dating, she was hitting the numbers, what I meant by the numbers is she was hitting the values. Now values were just clicking. And I'm very happy to say we're married 6 years now. But the same thing happens in business. Let's get back to business a little here. When I'm looking for people to come into what I'm doing here, right, with my coaching program, I'd like to know that we have a connection. It's not, I just want your money, come into my business. I want to build a relationship with these, building a business relationship so that we're all growing with it and building it and making it happen. Not just come in, do my thing, and tell you what to do and go back out. I was in enough of those programs where that didn't work. And I was like, I'm going to put together a new program where I understand what they need, because I needed it and I wasn't getting it. So I built a program understanding what I felt was needed. And if somebody comes along and they need something totally different, then I'm not for them. But if it's just a little different, let's see where we can work together.
Love it. Dr. Andrea had to come off for a second. She has to go plug her computer back on because she is in a hotel room.
Yeah.
So I love the fact of that you figured out your life. And when you talked about numbers, I thought you were an accountant for a second.
Yeah. I said, let me fix that word. That's the magic of life, Sifu. You never know what's going to come out.
That's it. That's a beautiful thing. But and when we align with another human being, that right there, relationships, we don't handle them well. And you said it, because the numbers, if I would have known what I know now, I probably shouldn't have gotten married back then. So a lot of times, if you will, I was dead until I learned to live, right? Which is another way of putting it. When we consider our lives, we're going to make a million mistakes. And I tell my clients all the time, by the way, if you're not making mistakes, then you think you're just perfect, which you're not. You need to make the mistakes, but every mistake is a lesson.
Yes.
Every single mistake is a lesson. Write it down. Because you made a mistake, don't let it go by without you taking notice of that mistake, because you'll do the same thing in business, whether it's in your personal life, but you'll do the same thing in business. And then all of a sudden, when things are not working, you'll start to blame others. You'll start to blame this. Meanwhile, it's probably the process that we're not fully going with. It's the systems that maybe we have in place that are not giving us the results. Yet someone has been tapping our shoulder. Hey, you. Hey, that's not working. It's not working. Oh, yeah, of course it's good. It's worked before.
Right,
Well, wait a
exactly.
minute. Things have changed.
So true. So true, Sifu. And one of the things I tell my clients is, one of the guarantees I tell them is, there will be chaos. So be ready for it, right? Because if you think everything is going to be roses and daffodils and, happiness, it's not. There's going to be ups and downs. And if I prepare you for them when they happen, then we know how to move forward and get through them that much easier. Because I've already said, get ready for things not to go exactly as you hope they would go.
Mhm.
I love this dynamic because, I was just working with this on a client as well, because there is this perception and this infatuation with like success and we're going to make it. And it's like, it's not a straight line to get from here to there. It's just really up and down. And it was really fun because we just kind of went back and we looked at every challenge that they've gone through. Right. And we talk about this in the reflective dynamic, like you were saying, Sifu. It's like, what were the lessons learned when you guys got stuck? What were the lessons learned when the mistakes were made? What were the lessons learned when things got hard? And those were the times when innovation came through, creativity. They found like gaps in the business, right? The gaps in the business. They're like, I did not even see that. And this was just a ticking time bomb. But thank goodness, it's like you look at it and you're like, thank goodness this occurred, or else we wouldn't actually have known this was going to happen. And then putting in the systems and strategies to correct it. And then what was cool is we actually went through all the dynamics of when they were doing really well. And there was no problems, that steadiness that everyone wants and thinks is like the perfect thing. And we started to look at how that was actually bringing them challenges, and they got lazy. They stopped paying attention. They stopped innovating. In fact, one of their competitors really sped up in the background ahead of them, and now they're playing catch up to them. And so when we're doing really well, we get complacent and we do get lazy. We do step out. And so it's funny, we all want this like stability and this perfection there, except when we get there, if we're not still treating it like it's a challenging moment, we're going to step out while everyone else around us is stepping in because they're going through the fire. And so it's like, I really invite my clients now. It's like, I know things are going well, but let's step into the fire on our own. Let's start to plan ahead and let's see what the next steps that we can predict are going to be. Let's look ahead and see what challenges, what things we can refine to a greater degree before things do turn into a ticking time bomb. And we know your competition is working in the background. So I think that's really inspiring, because when we shift our perception on that, it gives us permission to embrace like the challenges in a different way, but also the supportive times, and see it in a different light and utilize it to our advantage on a regular basis.
I love that. Martin, before you said you can't grow by yourself.
Right.
And I agree 1,000%. But a lot of times we get a team, but we get a team so we can say we have a team, yet we're not listening to what the team is telling us as a business owner, as whether we're a corporation and so forth. So I say it doesn't matter who it is, their words, their ideas have value. But if we don't allow them to speak them, if we don't teach them that their ideas mean something, we'll never know. And yet the growth won't be there as much as it should be.
Right. I was talking in a business sense, but you're 100% right, because you have to allow them to communicate with you. You have to allow them to know that they're in a safe space, that they can say whatever they need to say in this environment and know that it will be heard. And at the end of the day, if I decide to disagree, it's not because I didn't like them. It's just that I didn't agree with what they were saying, and I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I will be the first one to raise my hand and say, you were right. But as a result, somebody who started out working for me as as a contractor a few years ago, just coming in to help me figure out my business, my branding, and where I was going to go, she's now my partner. She's a small partner in my business, but she's gone along the way. She's my fractional COO, so she still goes out and does everything, but she's also a partner in everything that happens now. That came from the growth that we allowed each other to have as we got to know each other.
Very cool.
I'd like to speak to that. So having worked with some pretty powerful people over the last 30 years, sometimes there is that ego or that celebrity status that comes into play. And the times where the growth stopped is when I felt like I couldn't challenge them on the things that I thought weren't working for them, or the things that they were doing, or we needed to do some conflict resolution. And anytime that I kept quiet is when I noticed things start to slide down. And so it put me in a position where I had to be resilient to really challenge them and let them know that sometimes the problem might be them. And they don't always want to hear that. However, so sometimes I felt like I put my job at risk, but at the same time, that was the whole point of them hiring me, is they hired me to, help with this business growth and, publicity strategy. And if you're not going to listen to me when I'm the one that this is my lane, and you're not going to listen to me, then you're not going to have the results that you want. And then you're going to fail, and then you're going to be mad. So I have to be able to confront them. I try to do it in a very loving, kind way. And then sometimes you just can't. You just need to say it like
Sure.
And they're not going to like it. And it's interesting because sometimes they'll backlash and not be pleasant. And other ones, now I know to pick the people who love me when I have to tell them like it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So I only work with those people now. Beforehand, I didn't have the ability to tell, or I didn't have the confidence to, I wanted to be nice. And now I know I am being nice by being firm. And that ended up helping as a teacher as well. It's funny when I reflect and look back, there are students that were flunked by their work and by how they contributed to the class. And it was never me flunking them. I always told them that it was them flunking themselves. And I feel really good about that, of having been a teacher, that my students appreciated that I gave them what they deserved. And they often took my class the second time so they could get it right. And that felt really good to
right there's a testament to you.
Yeah.
Right there, if they come back and say, okay, I didn't get it the first time, but I want to get it, and they come back to you, they could have easily rationalized that it was you, even though you said it. If their pride got in the way. And to me, the word rationalize is two words. It means rational lie, that you're lying to yourself, that it's rational to do things that you shouldn't be doing. And to your credit, they weren't rationalizing those things.
That I love that you split it up like that. I want to give my husband a little kudos there too, because my husband, we own rental properties, and he's an amazing landlord. He's kind when he needs to be and firm when he needs to be. And we've had people that he's evicted who call him later and ask to rent from us again, knowing that Tom did the right thing. They didn't pay. And he was just very honest with them. And so I think together as a couple, that really works for us. So, Carly, you were talking about how working with your husband, and how you guys, get along great as best friends and then fight, well together. I would say that Tom and I get along really well because we the way we process things in the world. So it's pretty cool.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love kind of this dynamic that both you and Martin kind of were sharing simultaneously as well, because it's interesting. It's true. It's necessary for us in the world to embrace those both sides. It's as you're saying, Andrea, it's like we can't just be nice all the time. Like sometimes people require that firm response. And if we're not willing to be that, we're actually not doing our customers, our clients a service, and sometimes our family and friends. And it's a great reflectionary point as well, because when we start to dive into our own growth and our own evolution, we often get to a point where we become experts. We feel like the experts, but our pride can actually hold us up there. So just like when we're talking about these individuals who, they think everything's right, they don't want to shift, they don't want to listen, like we also have the opportunity to become those people, and really checking in to make sure that we are balancing our pride, keeping ourselves humble, realizing that yes, we have become an expert in this area. We have a level of certainty, we have moved forward, but where can we also learn more? Like, where are you a lifelong learner? Because with everything that's coming out and everything that comes out on a daily basis, I can't even imagine being an expert in anything to a certain degree. Yes, we can have amazing knowledge, but can we actually like be experts in anything? Like, it's really hard with all the advances that we're making, and humbling ourselves to know that gives us the opportunity to still get quality feedback, quality feedback and understanding. I was at Harvard Business School at an event, and we were listening to one of the speakers who's a teacher there. And it was interesting because he was talking about XYZ around some health stuff. And the way that he was talking, he just nixed everyone in his industry. And I was sitting next to my friend of mine, and I was like, some of this is pretty good. And he's a really smart guy. I was like, and have you noticed some of the inconsistencies with like real medicine, like that I even understand that's out there that's like, this isn't factual? And he was like, yeah, I'm getting some red flags too. And we saw it because we're like, man, if this guy just collaborated, he would get so much further. Like, he would get so much further. His research, his education, it would be so much further. And he's doing big things in the world. And I'm like, but there's going to be a major gap that he's hitting because he's just so proud about being the best of the best and knowing exactly everything, that he's missing out on collaborating and with the individuals that are going to help him with his gaps. So it's really important for us as individuals to watch our pride as well and make sure we're humbling ourselves on a regular basis to be like, man, I don't know everything. And who do I know that can actually help me? And who do I know that can support me that knows this better?
Thank you for that. And by the way, I also, and Dr. Andrea also reminded me, I want to thank all of our listeners and people posting and even making comments and so forth. Thank you for being here. We love the fact that you come, you make comments, you give us little hearts and little thumbs ups and so forth. The reason we do the show is to bring experts like Martin and Carly to you guys. I love this conversation because it makes me think about a team, right? We so many times bring in a team member, yet we don't train them. We don't train them as to even how we do business. And one of the things the first thing I bring somebody on is I'd say, listen, I'm going to tell you things, and if you don't agree, please tell me. We need that open communication. And also, I had somebody who started working for me a while back. They're still with me. And one time I said, well, what do you think about this? They're like, it doesn't matter what I think because you're going to do what you want. I'm the boss, right? So I said, excuse me? They're like, well, you do everything just the way you want to do it. I said, but I'm listening to everybody. Oh, really? I said, yeah. And then I said, you know that thing that we're doing now? That was your idea. How do you know it was my idea? Somebody else told me you wouldn't speak up. I said, and I've told you all along, you need to speak up. And so now they are always, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I said, why are you asking me? Do it. Do it. I've given you permission for years now. If you have something that you think it's truly valuable and it's not hurting, because you know what the purpose is, you know what the mission is. If it aligns with that, don't wait for me. If I'm not around, just do it. And if it doesn't work, so what? At least we went for it. And I'm giving you that authority. And yet still to this day, they still ask me. They still ask me. And no matter how many times I say, hey, I need you to step up. And so sometimes they'll say to me, I want this done. I said, yeah, well, you're going to have to go ask somebody else if you want it done. Well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, you already know my answer. But we have to give them that authority, but we have to train them first. And even in making decisions, sometimes we get somebody in there who, yeah, they may challenge us, but when it comes to a decision where it may take money out of the business or put money in the business, they're terrified. They're terrified to do so. But so we have to give them that permission. And I think we have to train them in that regard. And everybody, whoever works for me, I train them. That's one of the biggest and most important things that I train them, that they can make decisions based on their role in the company where or they maybe have to talk to someone else to talk it out. But I think that when we bring a team member on, we have to give them some power in order for them to help us grow. Because we didn't bring them just to sit there, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really cool dynamic too, because it's like when we're bringing people on, it's true, we're bringing them on for their own genius, their own mastery in whatever area. Like we hired them because they fit the bill and they fit the culture, right? And if you're not checking in with your culture, checking with your culture. You want to hire people also because they fit your culture, your core values and your mission. So that's really important. So assuming you do all that, it's like, how do we integrate the individual to give them enough leeway? And this is kind of cool too, because whenever I'm setting core values with companies and we're working on those, we do the things that we would love to do and achieve, but also core values that are hard nose, and that keeps people in line to a certain degree, because when we have both the like core values that are inspiring and fulfilling the things that we would love to achieve, like maybe it's living authentically, right? But then we have the hard nose, where it's like, we don't do anything that would jeopardize our customer connection and relationship. Then whenever someone's taking a leap and taking that extra step, they have these boundaries that they can follow, where they know that they're not going to break the rules. They know that they're going to do the right thing. And then the other thing that I love to incorporate is I get people on daily meetings, weekly meetings, monthly, quarterly, and annually. And leaders are checking in with their teams, the CEOs meeting with the leaders. And in that, like whenever there's gaps, and if people are taking those leaps and risks, if anything occurs, guess what? It comes up right away. And so we know that if something's not working, it comes up right away. And that gives people more freedom to feel comfortable in actually bringing things to the table, because they know that it's not going to be 6 months later that they find out there's a problem, right? Like we're going to find out probably the next day or the next week, and we'll find out immediately. And so as long as there's those organization, the structures, everything put in place, like there's really a level of innovation and control that can be put in to give employees freedom to have some fun in the business, do what they would love, contribute, while making sure the core values of the company and the mission, and just the company in general, is staying stable.
Love it, love it. So it is time to wrap up. By the way, in case you didn't know, I have a show in 13 minutes, so I have to get off in 3. So each one of you, it's called Speaking Prowess, and it's an incredible show, and I have amazing people in it. I'd love for you guys to all come and join us. But right now, Carly, your ticker is going across the screen. You have 30 seconds. Tell people why they should connect with you.
Yeah, if you have a business and you'd love to just grow your business, scale it up, we focus a lot on the cash flow dynamic, working on people, strategy, execution. I'd love to connect with you. Also personal development, so we can dive in and just help you empower yourself, your business, and your employees.
Perfect. Thank you. And Martin, I'd love to hear from you, my friend.
Oh,
30
thank you
seconds,
so
my
much.
friend.
First thing is, thank you both for having me on the show. It's been wonderful and great to meet you, Carly, as well. I've been in the coaching arena so long that I've seen so many of these coaches make promises that at the end of the day, they weren't delivering. And I said, I have to put together a program that gives not only coaches on information, but coaches on results. So I put together a program that guarantees it by using what I call a risk reversal strategy. And I would love for people to find out more about me. You can go to connectwithmartin.com, find out about my next workshop, and we can go from there. If you want to, there's a link to also have a call with me to go a little deeper if you want to go that way too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Andrea, what can I say? We are so fortunate. We bring incredible people to our show. Dr. Andrea, do you want to take it away with us?
Sure. Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller, www.The Red Carpet Connection. I work with a few elite professionals, CEOs, celebrities, athletes who really want someone to work with them so that they could find out what they've been missing all along, so that they can actually start living their legacy instead of just writing a book so that way everybody can read about them after they're already dead. So give me a call. Let's live your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys can just look for me. Sifu Rafael. I'm everywhere. That's what my accountant tells me. So he's like, you're everywhere. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. Super, super excited to have you on the show. And do me a favor, Martin. We're connecting, man. We're connecting.
100%. Let's get
Carly,
together.
you're coming back on more shows. Love it. Dr. Andrea, live your best life, my dear. All right, everybody. Take care.